Emergency podcast territory, guys. The Marlins have won a series against the Atlanta Braves. And today, this afternoon, this morning, whatever time zone you're in, the Marlins have the opportunity in September to sweep the Braves. The offense comes alive. 20 runs in 2 games for this Marlins offense at just the right time. This is Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked On Marlins. This is your Daily Marlins podcast. I, of course, am your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up at Miami Marlins _UK. If you listen to the pod, hit subscribe. It's your team every day. And thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen, even on a Sunday. Even if you aren't listening on a Sunday, it doesn't matter. This won't age poorly at all. This will age beautifully heading into Monday, no doubt about it. There is a YouTube channel, of course, guys. Hit subscribe there. Also, you will see, if you are watching on YouTube, it is a solo pod. No guests on a Sunday. It's a bonus pod. Emergency pod. However we want to phrase it, because the Marlins and their offense has got me feeling something. I hope it's got you feeling something. This series, oh my days, it's come at exactly the right time. Exactly the right time. We're going to dig into all of that over the last 2 games, how the Marlins have managed to beat the Braves and effectively out-brave the Braves, which I didn't expect to be saying. The Marlins have won games with Johnny Cueto starting and then Brian Hoeing starting. Boy, oh boy, this Marlins team is always in it. They will never lay down. However, this episode is sponsored by FanDuel, and you can make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, guys, and where are we starting? We are starting with the offense, baby, and the offense has come alive. If you were listening on Friday's episode, I called it out to say the Marlins are good at home. Luis Arraez in particular, very good at home. He looked great in that last game of the Brew Crew series. It looked like the power was just there. The power was coming. He had a couple of warning track blasts. And in the last 2 games in this series, warning track power has turned into home run power. A multi-home run game on Friday evening. That is the first multi-home run game of Luis Arraez's career. What a time. What a moment for Luis Arraez to drop that in there. Like I said on Friday, this is the time for Luis Arraez to just propel this offense. If Luis Arraez is on fire, usually the Marlins offense is on fire. And when the Marlins offense is on fire, they're usually winning games, which is exactly what we've seen. Listen, this series in general thus far it's been lively, very lively, because we get things rolling on Friday, right? The Marlins come out the gate hot. You got Johnny Cueto going, bit of traffic in the first. He gets out of it. Then all of a sudden the Marlins put up 3. Then they put up another one. It's 4-0 heading into the 3rd inning. You're thinking, boy, oh boy, here we go. The Braves come all the way back. They take the lead. And then the Marlins put up a 5 spot in the 7th inning. A 5 spot in the 7th. It flips the game on its head. And then the bullpen effectively does the rest. When you look at that, though, Tanner Scott, let's start with Johnny Cueto. He managed to go 4. 7 hits, 3 earned runs, no walks, 2 Ks, gave up a home run, standard. This has pretty much been Johnny Cueto's line. However, what I really liked in this one was the fact that Skip Schumacher decided not to go back to the well another time. We've seen that in Johnny Cueto starts where there's a tendency or an openness, a willingness to put him back out there and just try to stretch it out, thinking, there's a little bit more in the tank here for Johnny Cueto, and then he gets hurt. Cueto had thrown 70 pitches at this point. So from a pitch count perspective, there were probably some left in the chamber. However, he got him out of there. He got Chargois in there. He gave up an earned run, by the way. Then Robertson came in. He gives up 2 earned runs. So all of a sudden, that decision from Skip Schumacher, whilst I agree with it, it didn't really work in reality. with the Braves offense coming alive. Puck then comes in, does his thing. Nardi and Scott then clear it up at the back end. But it was about the offense exploding at the back end of that game. And, listen, Arraez was propelled it. Arraez got it going again. Home run in the first inning, home run in the seventh inning. And, for me, that's the critical point. But in this game, it was all about Jacob Stallings too. Jacob Stallings, I think, had the biggest hit of his Marlins career. The bases were juiced. Jacob Stallings somehow manages to get one down the left field line. It stays fair. The base is clear. Jacob Stallings stood there on second base doing a dance or something, whatever Jacob Stallings is doing. Huge moment for Jacob Stallings. Prior to that already, Jase Chisholm Jr. got on first base. Garrett Hampson blasted one into the gap. Jazz scores all the way from first base. Hampson had come into the game because Brian De La Cruz exited. Another injury for the Marlins to deal with. But Hampson comes in and delivers. We have to call it out with Garrett Hampson. What a utility guy he's had. Birdie's historically been the util guy. But this year, Garrett Hampson, Birdie's kind of... I don't know what's been going on with John Birdie. That probably needs another episode in itself. We'll dig into that another day. But John Birdie hasn't been as consistently effective, I would say, in the utility role. And Garrett Hampson, particularly recently, feels like he's filling everything, both offensively and defensively. And yesterday in particular, in Saturday's game, made a couple of real nice grabs, playing shortstop, Garrett Hampson. One particular over-the-shoulder basket catch that was critical at the time. Jase Chisholm wasn't getting there. Garrett Hampson did get there. And Jase Chisholm was just stood there like, wow, what a play, which is great to see. But Garrett Hampson, big knock. Jacob Stallings, big knock. Luis Arraez, obviously, big knock as well. 5 runs scored in that 7th inning. The bullpen took over from there. So that was game 1. It was back and forth. Marlins offense, Braves offense, Marlins offense, Marlins bullpen. Game 2, different script, no doubt. Braves came out. It was Brian Hoeing, before he'd even known it, he was 3-0 down. I don't think he had an out at this point. I think it was a double, 2 home runs, and then I think he walked the 4th guy. So there was 4 batters, no outs. The Braves were 3-0 up, and you're thinking, man, this game could get out of hand quick. I don't think anyone actually got up in the pen because the pitch count hadn't got up at all. It was just like damage being done by the Braves. But in, most improbable situation here, you end up with Luis Arraez, another home run. And this has just been his series. But Yuli Gurriel, with his biggest hit probably for the Marlins. He's had some other big ones earlier in the year, granted. And some of them came, I remember that one in particular where he ended up pinch hitting. It was reverse splits. Do you remember that one where we were all like, oh my days, Skip Schumacher pressing all the right buttons? In this one, though, to deliver the 3-run bomb at that moment to get the Marlins ahead 4-3 was huge. The Marlins then went 5-3. Then next thing, the Braves claw it back. It's 5-all, and you're thinking, which way is this game going to go? What had been happening during this game, though, was Jake Burger was just, he was the guy getting the offense ticking. I know Luis Arraez obviously had the home run, a couple of hits, but for me, it was Burger in that 3-hole looking so good, so impressive. He was just so flat through the zone as well. Like all of his hits, opposite field. He had 3 of those hits. He had a single, he had a double, and he had a 2-run blast home run to put the Marlins up in that 8th inning, take the lead. And you're thinking, is that going to be enough? Is it going to be enough? Then you get Gurriel, Jesus Sanchez, and Hampson. Load the bases. The bases were juiced. The Marlins have had no salamis. They've been salamiless all year in 2023. This team is in the playoff hunt. They're in the wild card hunt. The offense, okay, if you look at runs scored, they are the worst offense in the NL. However, you would have thought that with the type of offense that they've built in terms of like looking to accumulate like a lot of contact, a lot of balls in play, no strikeouts, they're going to be, they should have hit a grand slam by this point, right? No salamis. Anyway, Jase Chisholm Jr. came up, and frankly, the pitch before, he missed one, but then he went back to the well, and he destroyed one. Salami, second deck salami, Jase Chisholm Jr. going bananas. It was an ice-cold bat flip, eyeballing all of the Braves bench. Luckily, Nothing, no, didn't incite the bench, but he definitely looked over there, and then he definitely flipped it, and then he definitely did his usual rounding of the bases. Huge moment for Jase. He also stole 3 bases in this game. So Jase became, I think, the second player only in the history of the game to have a grand slam and 3 stolen bags in a single game. Jase also dropped the bunt in that game. And I'm going to talk about Jase. I'm going to carry on the conversation with him. But we need to let you know about our good friends over at Jase Medical. We need to let you know about Jase Medical. And let's get the graphics going first as well. So we got those boys pumped up. There we go. Graphics up. Modern medical care and treatments are important, but our global supply chains are fragile. Things like pandemics, natural disasters, and foreign travel may cut you off from the treatment you need. Jase Medical is your solution. Just fill out their online form, and one of Jase Medical's board-certified physicians will review it to determine whether medications are safe and appropriate. Then Jase will send your prescriptions to one of their partner pharmacies, where your order will be filled and mailed directly to your home. You can also send your physician a message for answers to treatment-related questions at any time. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using my code, which is locked on. It's all caps, all one word, locked on at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's Jase as in Jase medical.com. All right, guys, thanks for joining me, Peter Pratt, on Sunday's episode of Locked On Marlins. The Marlins have just spanked the Bravos 2 games in a row. They've put up 20 runs in those 2 games coming after a very tough series in Milwaukee. They have won both games in the series. They have an opportunity to go for the sweep this afternoon, this evening, wherever you may be watching the game. Jesus Luzardo will be going for the Marlins. Charlie Morton will be going for the Braves. We'll wait to see. This is going to be a big game. The Braves clearly little to play for, and I think this is what I spoke about in advance of this series. Perfect time to face the Braves. They've been on the sauce. They've been saucing up, particularly in game 1. Ozzie Albies looked like he was still drunk. Ozzie Albies, fine, great, good for the Marlins. Did say that. Will the levels drop a touch? I think they have. I think the Braves level has dropped. The Marlins level has risen. What's that meant? The Marlins offense has been enough to power them past the Braves, which has been so impressive. The fact is, there's not many games left now. The fact is, this series, on the face of it, looked like it could be a huge problem for the Marlins. It really could. But, as I've already mentioned, Luis Arraez at home, Jake Berger at home too, and then Jazz Chisholm Jr. coming alive with a historic performance. Grand slam, 3 stolen bags, plus a bunt for Jazz Chisholm Jr. That was another little wrinkle from yesterday's game too. The way that the lefties, both Jazz and Jesus Sanchez, when facing the lefty, were both, instead of looking to take a traditional AB, they were looking to bunt early. Jesus Sanchez, it has to be said, with one of the worst bunt attempts I've ever seen. He got himself all crossed up, all mixed up. That just shows, right? Jesus Sanchez, he probably hasn't tried to bunt that often. Jazz definitely has, but Jesus Sanchez, back to bunting practice in BP, I'd say, for him, because he ends up bunting it straight to Matt Olson at first base, ends up doubling up as well with Yuli Gurriel, I believe, who was stood on first base at that point. It was one of the worst bunt attempts I've ever seen, if I'm completely honest. Jazz, though, but just strategically, what the Marlins are trying to do, particularly with those lefty hitters against the lefty pitchers, Jazz's numbers haven't been great. Jesus Sanchez's have been a little bit better this year, but prior years, Jesus Sanchez really terrible against lefties. So I thought it was very interesting that both of them looking to just drop the bunt and get on base, get the small ball rolling. I think it's been one of the weirdest things, I would say, with this Marlins team all year, is the fact that they haven't really played a lot of small ball, looking at use speed as much as maybe I would have expected. But nevertheless, it was what it was. But Jazz with the exclamation point on that one. And what we shouldn't forget either, guys, and won't really be obvious in the box score anyway, but Tanner Scott had to come in in that 8th inning, the bases were juiced for Tanner Scott. He took one pitch to get the one out, to get the Marlins out of it in the 8th, and then the rest is history, baby. So Tanner Scott, for all the talk we had, I shared, like, I wasn't convinced that Tanner Scott was maybe going to be able to replicate his successes in the 9th. Well, the Marlins in multiple times the last couple of weeks have asked Tanner Scott to go more than an inning, and it wasn't a traditional save opportunity. He ended up getting the win because, he entered the game and then the Marlins then took the lead. But Tanner Scott has to go more than an inning in the highest of high leverage spots. And the game was tied. The bases were juiced. They needed an out. Andrew Nardi got himself into a bit of trouble. Tanner Scott came in, one pitch, out of it. And that is what you need from your high leverage arms. It doesn't matter one inning. That was the highest leverage of situations that the Marlins were in at that point. We also have to talk about Jake Burger because Jake Burger has been sensational. Someone tweeted last night after the game to say the upgrade from Gene Segura to Jake Burger was the biggest upgrade that anyone's maybe ever made, at least in this season. Maybe in the history of baseball. I don't know. But Kim Ang managing to move Gene Segura, his money, etc., bring in Jake Burger for Jake Eder. It's fair to say Jake Eder, a lot of people like the profile. He's not started well in his new organization, let's say. The Marlins have a history of developing pitchers. Let's see what Jake Eder's career ends up being outside of the Marlins organization. We'll see. He obviously had Tommy John a year ago. He's been working his way back this year. Is he still the same guy? Have the Marlins just absolutely fleeced the White Sox? It's certainly possible that they have. Nevertheless, that deal will be, well, we said at the time that no one was making those types of deals, going and acquiring a guy with 5.5 years of control. No one was doing that at the deadline. Everyone's looking at rentals and et cetera, et cetera. Not Kim. She's making big deals that look like fat dubs. And Jake Burger with that 2 home run blast. I mean, I could see it coming. I could feel it coming. Like Burger, his at-bats, his contact, his swing, the way it was all just looking and feeling yesterday. It ended up just being like just straight up Scud missile yesterday. It was great. That 2-run blast, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Josh Bell equally, he's been kind of struggling the last week or two, it's fair to say. I mean, yesterday, one of the funniest parts of that whole game was the fact that Josh Bell, he hit this ball. It was a bottom of the zone. I can't remember who was pitching at this point for the Braves. It was bottom of the zone. The way the cameraman started to go upwards into the upper deck, we were expecting this to land in Tampa, to be honest with you. It didn't even reach the warning track. It was one of the most botched camera jobs I've ever seen. Nevertheless, though, Josh Bell yesterday ended up with 2 hits, also a walk. He ends up on base 3 times. Just a single K for him. So that was big too. But for the Marlins to win both games against the Bravos is huge. We're going to talk about what that means for the wild card real shortly. But before we do that, time to let you know about our good friends over at FanDuel. Listen, guys, it is Sunday, and we all know what that means. There is tons of activity, tons of bets to be had, no doubt, with your NFL Sundays. Guys, get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday ticket. You might be scrambling around for that right now from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, guys, final segment here with me, Peter Pratt, on Locked On Marlins. And boy, oh boy, the Marlins offense is locked in right now. No doubt about it. 20 runs against the Bravos in 2 games. Are the Braves in trouble? No, they're not. The Braves offense still looks dangerous. However, Ronald Acuna Jr., the other story here, exits the game in game 1. Calf issue. Didn't play. First game he's missed all season in game 2. The Marlins get the dub. Interested to see whether the Braves go with him in game 3 or not. Frankly, I mean, I don't know why the Braves would want to mess around. If Ronnie Acuna yesterday was held out of the game. There was also some pinch hit opportunities as well when the game was close in the 7th or 8th innings. If he was held out as well, then would you not just hold him out of a day game on a Sunday against the Marlins? Like, not that I don't want to see Acuna. I love seeing Acuna play, and I love the rivalry actually between Acuna and the Marlins and the fan bases, etc. But like the Braves right now just need to just be sensible, in my opinion. I just don't see how it makes any sense to be throwing out Ronald Acuna into a day game. Nevertheless, what does this all mean for the playoff picture right now? Because this is so tight, so incredibly tight. It's wild. That's why it's the wild card, I guess. But this, when the change was made to go to 3 teams for each division, or league, sorry. This is, I think, what they had in mind. What they had in mind was multiple teams buying at the deadline, less teams tanking and selling off because they didn't really have an opportunity and didn't think it was within their grasp. So this is exactly what Rob Manfred wanted, and this is what the fan bases deserve. The fan bases deserve the likes of the Giants, the Marlins, the Reds, the Diamondbacks, the Cubs, all to be buying or staying put, at the very least. And okay, fair enough for the Rockies and the Nats and, the Mets, maybe. Okay, it's fine. You move on your guys that are rental guys, but, it's made it very, very intriguing and compelling. The Angels, I don't think quite got it right. I liked their effort, but overall, that one backfired. We have to call that one out. However, back to the NL wildcard. So right now, at the end of yesterday's game, so before this Sunday slate, the Cubs, that looked like they were pretty much locked into the number 2 slot and actually going for the division. I heard all the Cubs guys kind of going, hey, we need you to go into Milwaukee and do them over because we're looking to take this Central. All of a sudden now, the Cubs, they are, what are they back there? They're 6 back, I think, in the division. So the division looks like it's now out of reach. However, the Cubs, last 10, they're 3-7. That includes losing their last 4 games. The Cubs right now, they're only a half game up. I guess they're only a half game up, but actually they're a full game up, I'd say, on the Marlins. Nevertheless, the Cubs are right back in it. That's the point I'm making. So, whilst the expectation was 1 spot, 4 clubs. As we're looking at things right now, there's 2 spots and there's 5 clubs in the mix. There is. The Cubs are right back in it. I think the Phillies are fine. I think the Phils are safe. They've won the last 2 as well, the Phils. So, the Phils look like they're going to be in and they're going to be probably the number 1 seed of the wild cards. You've then got 2 spots up for grabs. The Cubs, Diamondbacks, and Cincinnati Reds currently sit in the wild card spots. You then have the Marlins half a game out. You then have the Giants, which have really fell away. They've lost their last 3 games. They had a doubleheader yesterday in Coors, got beat in both of them. So not a great run for those guys. All of a sudden, the Giants are maybe in panic mode here. The Giants themselves are only 1 game over 500. So, if the Giants continue to scutter, then that's great news for the Marlins. Less clubs in it. All of a sudden, you got 2 spots, 4 clubs. We'll wait to see. I haven't looked actually at the Giants' schedule, etc. But this is what I spoke about on Friday. For the Marlins in particular, these 9 games at home right now was so critical because they played well at home, and they're playing the Braves clearly. Brewers coming to town, and then the Mets. I haven't seen the Mets since April. They're a very different club now to what they were back then. But if the Marlins can just play well and just maybe even get themselves a game or 2 up in this wild card race, that would be huge. The way this club is performing right now, and what we've seen with the Marlins all year is just their doggedness. They won't go away. They're always fighting. You gotta, naturally, we're a little bit concerned because the pitching doesn't look the strongest right now with Sandy missing. We'll wait to see what happens with Sandy, but it doesn't look the strongest. Obviously, like Brian Hoeing yesterday did well, gave up a couple of bombs. It's the Braves in the first inning. It happens to everyone. But I really liked what I saw after that from Brian Hoeing. He's been one of the standout, under the radar guys all year for the Marlins. But you've still got Johnny Cueto in there that you don't trust. You've still got, effectively Brian Hoeing which is a bullpen game. You've still got Yuri Perez on a pitch count. So, against good offenses, that probably means he's going 5 max. There's so many innings to cover here. And that's kind of why we're all a bit nervous. But Soler looks like he's going to be back soon. That's going to be a boost again for the offense. And you've got these guys like a Garrett Hampson, like yesterday, Gurriel. You've got guys around that are vets, pros that have been around Major League Baseball for years and still have something in the tank and still have something to offer. That's the difference maker here for the Marlins. Some of the other clubs, I'd say like the Reds, for example, a lot of youth. A lot of youth in there. Same with the Diamondbacks. A lot of youth, a lot of young guys, a lot of young, exciting squads. The interesting bit is that the Marlins have that experience kind of sprinkled through them. And I think that maybe could be the difference maker here, where Hampson and Gurriel in particular, he's seen it all before. He has seen it all before. Then you've got, Luis Arraez, just a certified stud. Berger's catching fire at the right time. Jazz wants to be a stud, is playing like a stud right now. You've even got like Jacob Stallings that's come alive too. And, maybe for the Marlins, they had their little rocky spell. Maybe they've just kind of clicked at the right time. A bit like where the Cubs. Did the Cubs peak too soon? Did the Giants peak too soon? I think, to me right now, it looks like they could have done. All of a sudden, the Marlins have gone again. So are the Diamondbacks. So are the Reds. It's going to be intriguing. But I like the Marlins' depth. I like the fact they've got the veterans in there. Even the guys who aren't playing, Avistel Garcia is still around. Trevor Rogers is still around. Sandy's still around. All these guys, the veterans for the Marlins, the clubhouse leaders, they're still in and around. There's so many good voices, positive voices around this club. And clearly, they feel like they're in the mix. They are in the mix. And I think Jazz yesterday post-game said, we know we've got a great team. That's what it's all about. There's a chance to sweep the Braves in September. The Braves have been so good this year. Anything can happen at any point. But if Jesus Luzardo can somehow find a way to give 7 innings of work, a 7-inning Jesus Luzardo start, and if this Marlins offense come alive, Charlie Morton won't be easy. It's never easy against Morton. But the Braves pitching right now feels a touch vulnerable. They've had to turn to their bullpen plenty as well over the past couple of days. This series is there to be swept. And it will be a headline-grabbing sweep if they're able to make it happen. That's been Locked On Marlins on Sunday, an emergency episode. I look forward to seeing you guys on Monday.